From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. More Idaho Matters right now. Late last month, President Trump issued an executive order ending collective union bargaining rights for many federal agencies. This includes Veterans Affairs. And numerous Idaho federal employees, many who work for the VA, aren't taking this news sitting down. Now, joining us today to talk more about the issue and what it means for Idaho and what it means for our veterans is Chandler Bursey. He is president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 1273. Chandler, I want to welcome you to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. It's good to be here.
So, Chandler, I just want to start with the basics. Tell us what the American Federation of Government Employees is.
Well, we're a collection of different types of people that are working here in the federal government. So we have doctors, we have nurses, LPNs, we have people that work in the parks. Pretty much, it's a very broad spectrum with American federal government employees. It's a lot of different kind of people, but we all kind of fit under American AFGE, as we're known. So. Mm-hmm.
And do you represent? Is your union chapter? Does it represent all of those workers in the state of Idaho, or are you a specific region?
My specific local represents the VA, but we also have a sister union with the TSA, and their vice president is Cameron Cochems, and he's doing an amazing job fighting.
Okay, so I want to talk about what happened at the end of March. This is when President Trump signed an executive order, as I mentioned, ending collective union bargaining rights for some federal agencies. Okay, so for folks who aren't familiar, Chandler, explain exactly what collective union bargaining is.
Sure. So the gist of it is pretty much the government and the unions came together with an agreement, called it a collective bargaining agreement. It's how we agree how we're going to work in conditions, stuff for any kind of punitive. If there's a employee that maybe not be up to par, how the union helps that employee. The government recognizes that retention is very important and is cost saving for the government and for the American people. So we come together, a bunch of lawyers come together, work it out. We all agree, we sign it, and we move on. We work, we exist. We come to the table, and with on March 27th, they just issued an executive order taking away that collective bargaining agreement. And it's illegal. You can't do that. We agreed to this. It's a legal document, and the administration pretty much said, nope, we're not doing that anymore.
So if I have this right, they pulled the collective bargaining agreement that was already in place.
Correct. Yes. So, and then AFGE's response was pretty much okay, well, we're going to take you to court. So I think it's about 950,000 collective bargaining members filed against this administration to get our collective bargaining agreement back. And pretty much be recognized by this administration. And it's a pretty big fight.
So what's happened since that lawsuit was filed?
Well, it depends on where you're at. I know the TSA got hit first, and they got hit really hard. I know that there's a lot of flight attendants and pilots that have concerns about mostly security concerns. Morale is really down at the TSA. Morale is really down at the VA right now. Because, working for the government used to be a really stable job. That's why I started working at the government. I was looking for a job that I could just do, and I could go home and I could do good work and I can serve veterans. The TSA feels the same way, that they can just go, they can do their security job, they can get a good paycheck, they can be supported, they can have health care, their families can be supported, and protecting the friendly skies of America. But right now, there's just a lot of unease.
It's interesting, Chandler, that you said, working for the government used to be a stable job, right? And
Absolutely.
what people might forget is that the reason why we have things like 401ks in the private sector and you have things like retirement in the private sector is because the government offered all of those things before. And so you may not be getting as big of a paycheck working in the government, working like that. But what brought people there was things like health insurance, retirement, right? Those benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those start being taken away, or what's going on right now with literally pulling that agreement that was already in place, you talked about morale. What does that do to morale?
Well, I mean, people are uneasy right now, but part of my job is to give people hope and get them excited about what their union can do for them and what we're continuing to do for them. Like you said about the pension and everything like that, those are amazing perks that the government was offering its employees, right? Because I could make 20% more in the outside market for doing what I do as my regular job at the
Mhm.
VA. But I want to serve veterans, right? I want to help people. And I believe in what the mission statement is. So the problem is that a lot of people are uneasy because a lot of the probationary employees, they were fired outright by an executive order. AFGE fought for them and we got them back. Now, the crazy part about that is we lost 14 employees here at the Boise
Mhm.
VA. AFGE fought on a national level. We were able to get them hired back on, but because DOGE, for their efficiency, we only have 2 people out of those 14 working back on campus, and everybody else is on administrative leave at home. So it's not super efficient. So we had 14 people working, and then now we have 2. So like, what's going on?
So what's going on, right?
Yes.
And that was my next question. With this agreement being stripped from your union, what does that mean for employees at the VA, specifically, at the medical center in Boise?
Well, there's still AFGE. I still exist. I'm still here. I'm still representing employees. We are we're fighting to get pretty much a hold, an injunction in place with this, so that we can, on a more national level, can keep operating as we are. But right now, locally, it just depends on what the directors are deciding from the people above them. I'm
Hmm.
still allowed to represent my employees and fight for them, especially for their FMLA stuff, or just regular people who showed up late and their supervisor's mad at them. I get to come in and say like, "Hey, we all make mistakes. I think a mulligan here or there is okay." So
So, with that said, though, what does it mean for the veterans that you take care of? In particular, Chandler, when you just mentioned how you were able to get those employees back, those those probationary employees, right? However,
mhm.
as you said, out of the 14, only 2 were physically back working. So, and I'm assuming you were understaffed before
Yeah,
DOGE
yeah,
came in.
yeah. Yeah, that's always been a chronic problem with the VA, of just understaffing and stuff like that. But the bigger pull to get people into the VA is the mission statement. Like, you get to serve veterans, right? You get to help those who have served, and a lot of the injuries are unseen. So we have amazing psychiatrists that work here. We have amazing nurses and doctors that put in a lot of time. They have an immense caseload, and we need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need more doctors, and that kind of leads into the next thing of what Idaho has been doing against reproductive rights and the legislation against our LGBTQIA plus members. It's a problem.
So, Chandler, when this executive order came down, you said March 27th, you and
Mhm.
your union, you fought back. You held a peaceful rally outside the Boise VA, I believe on March 31st. And if I remember correctly, because I drive by that every day, it was pouring down rain that day. This wasn't great weather. Tell us about what happened.
Well, yeah, it was really great. So, like you said, it was a peaceful picket, and I really believe in Dr. King's movement of nonviolence, and that's what we want to support. This is we My arguments are not with my local administration here at the VA. It's on a national level. So we got together with a bunch of different unions, and decided let's picket. Let's get people excited. Let's inform the public about what's going on here. And the TSA joined us. We had some legislators that showed up as well. Todd Achilles, Alana Rubel. I know Melissa Wintrow wanted to be here, but she had the flu, and she sent her apologies. But we had about 60 to 70 people show up. We put the call out, just people in the local community, not even union members, that wanted to support the VA. Because what's coming down from Secretary Doug Collins is an 83,000 employee reduction in force. And that's just
Mm.
dangerous. That's just straight dangerous.
So after that rally, it actually gained some national attention. And my understanding is you all of a sudden got a phone call from Senator Bernie Sanders' team.
From his team, not him exactly. Yeah.
Right, from his team.
Yeah, I was just coming off of paternity leave and just kind of getting the rundown of how everything was going. I was still pretty involved with what was going on in the union. My phone was kind of ringing off the hook a little bit, with just coming back. And then I picked up the phone and he said I was a 202 number. I was like, well, that's weird. And
Hmm.
he said, hi, this is Jeremy with the Bernie Sanders campaign. And then my partner, Jonathan Miles, and I just looked at each other and we had like a Bill and Ted moment of just like, what? And just,
Or
we
it's like,
couldn't
is this a
believe it.
scam call?
Exactly. Right. Like, what? Bernie Sanders is calling me. Like, what? What's going on? And
So what
yeah,
happened?
yeah. So they just said, like, we saw the media attention that you guys generated with your peaceful picket, and we like what you were saying. Would you be able to speak for 2 to 3 minutes at the rally? We're going to be shifting over to Boise, Idaho soon, so we're going to bring the fight against oligarchy here in Idaho. And of course, they said yes. I mean, you can't say no to that. So,
Well, and we should note that you did give about a 3 minute speech at the rally last week. And at the end of
mhm,
your introduction, you introduced Representative Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. Um,
mhm.
First off, your speech was powerful,
Oh,
and
thank you.
and then being able to stand on that stage with 12,000 plus people there. What was that? What was that like? That moment like for you?
Oh, it was surreal. I wanted to take in the moment. I wanted to get the message out. I wanted people to understand that they needed to contact their representatives about what was going on. The Talmud talks about to save one life is to save an entire world or save an entire universe. And I that comes to mind when I'm in really large crowds that each of these people is an individual that has hopes and dreams and has a past. And to that many people, it's almost overwhelming. But everybody was there. Everybody was really positive. I wanted the message to be positive. I wanted it to be powerful. I wanted people to understand that, the VA could go away. We're looking at losing
Hmm.
possibly 300 people at this local VA, at the Boise VA. And I've heard numbers as low as 300 and as high as 488. So there's only 1,300 employees here that work at the Boise
Wow.
VA. And to lose 300 would be detrimental. And it's going to push them out in the outside community. And, Boise and Idaho as a whole just can't take the numbers of the veterans that are going to come in if this
So
rift comes down, which we want to stop. Yeah.
So I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the things you said during your speech last week. And the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that you did say was that President Trump killed your bargaining power. And
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say, even though your peaceful protest got a lot of coverage, I don't think there was a lot of coverage on the fact that what this bargaining power being taken away actually meant. Why was it important for you to, in front of this 12,000 plus crowd, really have them understand what that collective bargaining power being stripped from your union means? And not even just for your union, but really what it means for our community as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Well, unions have historically been the last line in the sand against tyranny and stuff like that. So really when they start attacking labor unions, it's kind of the canary in the coal mine of what's going on in an administration. So to get these people to understand what's going on, it's paramount. It's we fight and we win. We win because we have the collective power of many voices in many different backgrounds of people that are coming together and saying, no, you need to stop doing this because it not only hurts federal employees, it hurts regular working people in the outside community because, unions fight for the 40-hour work week. We fought for healthcare. We fought for paternity and maternity leave. That was a huge win for us. And when we get a win, all workers get a win.
You also spoke about this possibility of losing at least 300 jobs, and how that of VA workers would lose their jobs, because officials, as you said, they do plan to make these cuts if it is approved. That does mean that here in Idaho, we're going to see at least, as you said, 300 VA jobs lost, upwards of 480. And you said, and I'm quoting you, if you're a veteran, you should be mad. If you know a veteran, you should be mad.
Mhm. Yeah, you should be
Let's be
mad.
clear. There are a lot of veterans who have voted for Trump, not just in this election, but in previous elections. They like what he was doing, and they really have believed that he has put them first. And I don't want to take away at all from why people decided to vote the way they did. You have that right to vote the way that you do, to hold the beliefs that
Yep.
you have. Um, However, why was it important for you to again get people to understand what a loss of 300 jobs would actually look like? And let's start with what that would look like for employees who are left at the VA in Boise. Like what would that look like for them?
Their workloads were double or triple. We already have a space issue here at the Boise VA. We're trying to fix that. Their workloads would, like I said, double or triple. And what would happen is that the veterans that would be getting care here would be pushed into the outside community. And Idaho is rapidly becoming a healthcare desert. We just don't have enough physicians here in Idaho. A lot of them fled. I mean, most people understand that OB care is really hard here in Idaho. We lost a lot of
Mm-hmm.
OBs in northern Idaho recently. Reproductive rights is a huge issue. Why doctors flee, because of the legislation that our local constituents believed in, and there are consequences for doing that. Doctors need to be protected. Women need to be protected here in Idaho, and right now, it's a little bit dangerous. There's a little bit of danger here. There's actually a lot of danger. Let's be honest about it.
What does a loss of 300 jobs then mean for the veterans that you care for? As you mentioned, they might have to go, to find a private doctor, to try to get help outside of the walls of the VA. Um, but I would also think that there's something kind of special about the VA when it comes to taking care of veterans, because a lot of VA employees are veterans themselves, right? And so
That's
I would
correct. One
think,
third, yeah. Mm-hmm.
right. So you also know how to interact with veterans in a way that I think a lot of people in the private sector don't have an understanding of.
That is a specialty that we absolutely have here in the VA. Veterans come to the VA because they want to talk to another veteran. We have some nurses that are combat veterans. I know we have a nurse that even fought in Fallujah in Iraq. And he was always constantly saying, I'm here for my brothers and sisters. And the fact that he could say to another combat veteran, I know what you've been through, let me help. And that's huge, right? We still have Korean War vets. I think we still have a couple World War II vets, even I've seen walk around. Um, and we got a lot of Vietnam vets. There's a lot of combat veterans that have unseen scars that need the help, that they get specialty care here at the VA, and they get it from another veteran that understands what they went
Mm.
through. And it's immense. It's almost uncalculable of how much help they get here that they would not be getting in the outside community. They'd be getting longer wait times, and then the community themselves would be getting longer wait times because we have this huge influx of veterans flooding the community trying to get care.
So you are continuing to peacefully fight. As you said, your union has filed a lawsuit. I think you said what, upwards of 950,000 employees signed on to this lawsuit. So of course that's going through the courts. You had
Mhm.
a peaceful protest. You are planning another event tomorrow. Tell us about that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's going to be just like the first one. We're going to keep hope alive. It's open to anybody. If you want to come and demonstrate peacefully, you are more than welcome. We are trying to save the VA. We are trying to stop this reduction in force that's coming down from Secretary Doug Collins. And we're trying to inform the public that you need to contact Rich and Crapo. You need to contact your representative and tell them to stop this reduction in force and let them know what's going on. Because, like I said earlier, you should be mad. a lot of veterans were misinformed or uninformed about what's coming down because the VA has never faced this kind of attack before. We've never seen anything like this. The VA's never really been this political football like we're seeing now. It's always been a safe thing to support. Like I support veterans, I support federal employees. That's an easy thing to say. But I had a meeting with the directors for Rich and Crapo a couple of weeks ago, and we simply asked. I was there with a veteran. I was there with my associate, John Miles, and we sat down with them and we said what was coming down from Secretary Doug Collins, and we were just asking for their just support. Can you just say that you support veterans, say that you support federal employees? And I haven't heard one word from them, not one word. And that is completely honest.
And I think you made a very good point that historically there is almost an obligation to take care of our veterans and the support for veterans. And I would think that's got to be difficult right now, Chandler, in your position to have this uncertainty going on.
Absolutely. It tears me up when I think about it. A lot of employees come here because they want to serve veterans, or they know a veteran, or their parent was a veteran, or they had a brother, a cousin, somebody. Most people are connected to the veteran community that work here. My grandfather was a veteran in World War II. I have an uncle that served in Vietnam, and I want to make sure that my uncle gets the care that he deserves. Agent Orange was a huge thing, and it affects a lot of veterans, especially with the burn pits with our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. These burn pits are just doing devastating things to our veteran population, and they need the specialty care here at the VA for doctors that understand what's going on with their patients, instead of an outside physician that's just going to treat the symptoms and not understand the cause.
Well, Chandler, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule to talk with us about this. We've been speaking with Chandler Bursey. He is the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 1273. This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudet.